Okay. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Global India Business Corridor podcast, your gateway to building stronger business and trade ties between Maharashtra and the United Kingdom. I'm your host, Vikram Bharwani, and in each episode, we bring you insights from influential leaders in politics, industry, and innovation from both sides of the corridor, sharing its strategies, success stories, and opportunities that shape the Global India Business Corridor. Whether you are an entrepreneur, investor, or a policymaker, this is where collaboration meets opportunities. So without further ado, let's dive in. Let me begin by stating that it is my distinct pleasure in welcoming our guest to this podcast today, Professor Michael Mainelli.
Great to be here.
Thank you, Michael. Michael is currently serving as the president of the London Chambers of Commerce and Industries. And for the past 30 plus years, he's been leading a commercial think tank of the city called Zion. Michael, I've only covered the fraction of your achievements. I'm sure I've missed out on a few.
Well,
Do you want to?
we're here to talk about India. You do remind me of chaotic systems. Everybody who does a PhD often forgets what the title was. And I'm beginning to realize maybe in the chaotic times we have now, it was probably the right thing to do. And as far as being the first American, first Italian as well, actually, to be Lord Mayor, to be fair, America wasn't around when they began the Lord Mayor post back in 1189. So I think they're quite right to wait a while.
Interesting thought, Michael. Keep them coming in. I'm going to ask the questions and maybe we'll get into the details of this. So before we begin, I wanted to just inform the audience of the interesting backdrop against which we are recording this podcast. So there are two things that are happening that are quite unique. The first thing is just a few weeks ago, not even 4 weeks ago, UK and India signed a broad trade and economic deal, better known as CETA. And that is basically to make it easier for the businesses across the two borders to trade, to do business with, and reduce tariffs, etc. While on the other hand, we are seeing that the trade relationships between India and the US are turning frostier. How would you use this unique and frankly unprecedented backdrop to, take it as a tailwind and enhance the businesses across both the sides of the border?
Well, I think it's an interesting question for discussion, and I have some very strong thoughts on it. I think we're seeing two things. We've got geopolitical changes of great note, and we also have a renewed interest in a different way in trade and the importance of trade. I actually spent some time. I'm past master of the World Traders here in London, which is one of the livery companies dedicated to trade. And I was actually on the UK Board of Trade for a while. So I've been looking at trade through those various lenses.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at the geopolitical situation, America and others have shaken that up quite a bit. We'll see where that winds up. But looking at it from a commercial and business aspect, you're right. This is a golden opportunity for business people to show the importance of trade. And why do we need trade? We need trade because it provides us with comparative advantage.
Yeah.
When people specialize and have comparative advantage, it benefits everyone. We reduce costs, we produce things in the right places. So I'm very committed to trade, and trade has lifted literally over 1 billion people in the world out of poverty in just the last 30 years alone. So we should be pro-trade and proud of it. However, President Trump is undergoing two things, I think. One, a series of tariffs which are flying in the face of economic theory. And secondly, he's recreating a 95-year-old experiment, the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930, which was a complete failure for America. Mm-hmm. And we sit here on the sidelines and go, gee whiz, that's terrible. Well, actually, if we believe what we're talking about, we should be moving more towards free trade. Yeah. We should be saying to America after 3.5 years, we're sorry you went down this dead end. We wish you hadn't, but we actually pursued free trade even further. So what might that mean? Well, firstly, I applaud the huge number of agreements that are coming out. I mean, the India agreement took, what 2.5 years to negotiate. Yes. These are things that I think should be much more common and much faster and should grow. And we're looking at just under 40 billion of contracting already lining up between India in general and the United Kingdom. It's great, great stuff. But the United Kingdom is also a member of the CPTPP. I always have to say that out loud. Yeah, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. So the CPTPP was an agreement begun, ironically, by America in the early 2000s as a concept to create a free trade zone around the Pacific. President Trump, in his first term of office, decided not to participate. It currently includes 13 nations, quite sizable ones. China's on the outside, Korea's on the outside, but inside are a whole variety of people such as Japan, the Philippines, Chile, and Britain. The United Kingdom joined the CPTPP on the 15th of December last year. So, to me, I think it's kind of the only game in town that's up and running. It'd be nice if it renamed itself, but heck, if Britain's in the Trans-Pacific Partnership on the other side of the world, who can't be? And I would argue I'd like to see more people joining agreements like that, and I happen to think that's the best one that's available, and it could be improved from the inside. So it'd be wonderful to see countries like India either joining it or establishing a special relationship with the CPTPP.
Very interesting views, Michael. Thank you very much. I think focusing now on Maharashtra, the things that have already been established, thanks to the trade deal that has been signed. How would you envisage the trade deal impacting positively or negatively the businesses between UK and Maharashtra? Considering Maharashtra is the most populous state in India and financial capital of India is in Maharashtra, Mumbai. So your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things about India is it's hard to digest. For a country like ours with 67 million people, looking at India with 1.4 billion, it's tough.
And growing.
And Maharashtra stands out, as you said earlier, 130 million people, a great site, a great training area. The financial power of Mumbai fits very, very nicely with the UK as a financial services leader as well. So I think there's a lot of natural synergies. And arguably, it ought to be perhaps the first port of call for British firms looking to go to India, with even those with ideas of expanding nationally. So I'm quite keen on it. I went last year as Lord Mayor to Maharashtra, visiting Pune and Mumbai, and one cannot help but be impressed with the enthusiasm, the excitement, the opportunities, the sheer energy of the people and the place. And the good food.
And the food. You can't miss the food, no.
So I believe that Maharashtra is the ideal first starting point for a journey to India for a newbie.
Okay. Fantastic. And following on that answer, if you had to pack 3 practical projects to boost UK Maharashtra investment in the next 12 months, what would those be?
I'd probably pick 4, and there's a reason for that. I would start with finance. The relations could be very, very much improved, and that would be a kind of a special relationship between Maharashtra, between Mumbai and London, to be candid. And then we move on to what I'd call the 3 practical areas. The first one is clearly healthcare. There is a tremendous amount that can be brought back and forth at all levels, processes and procedures, hospital management, and things of that ilk, data, AI systems, diagnostics, medical imagery, medical machinery, surgical tools. There's just a whole plethora of things there. And India actually has a lot to teach the West in terms of frugality and getting by, and that lovely Indian term for making do and making do better. So I think there's a lot there. A second thing is there is an overwhelming lack of infrastructure in Maharashtra compared with the development level it ought to be at. And I would pick energy as probably the second area. And I guess potentially the third area for me is, believe it or not, oddly agriculture, but agriculture technology as opposed to agriculture itself. So those are the areas that we would be interested in. There are a couple of industries that lie outside it, and it's possibly my ignorance that means I'm not looking at them properly. I take it for granted that there are construction and infrastructure projects. I know about the rail projects, the hydrogen projects, things like that. The creative services industry is one I'm not very familiar with, but there is a tremendous Bollywood. Everybody knows the strength of India in those areas. But healthcare, definitely looking at the energy projects and trying to look at the technology side of agriculture would be my favorites.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. That was a broad coverage of areas. You've just picked 4. You cheated. I asked 3, but more is better. So finance, healthcare, energy, and agriculture or agri-tech. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of areas that I'd like to add to it, and we can probably discuss it later. The first one is education. As we discussed, and as you mentioned quite correctly, 1.4 billion people. The youngest population, working age population of any democratic country available in India. A lot of young kids look to the West for higher education. Expanding those universities that are based in the West, in Britain, in United States, having their presence in India to make it more available for the population over there. That is one area that is something that could be expanded into, but in the next episode. The other, it's not a specific area on its own, but suddenly it's become the most important topic to talk about is AI. Right? So while it's covered under the technology, the impact of AI is in every aspect of life, business, trade, etc. So, no podcast would be complete without mentioning AI. So following upon that, where can AI plus open data make the fastest difference to trade or compliance between London and Maharashtra? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. To me, the most important thing in AI is data.
Data, yes.
Vikram, you've heard me say before, our algorithms are frankly old and we know them well. The chips were designed for games but work well on AI. We've got the connectivity, but it's data, and increasingly energy. So that's where India clearly has much more data than Britain, and that I think is an inordinate strength. So if we take something like healthcare, which we mentioned a moment ago, a larger population, more variety leads you to better results, better analysis. So the data that India has is one of its great powers, in my opinion. And people look at data as static. I look at data as flowing. It's a flowing system. So it's as the data changes, the results change, and we want to see changes in the data set. These are not geologic structures that we're playing with. When it comes to education, there is a tremendous amount happening, and perhaps I should emphasize that London itself is an enormous education center. There are 70 universities within the 2 miles of where we're sitting, and I forget how many universities in London in total, because we have a lot of overseas universities here.
Yes.
There are enormous programs creating a lot of links both ways. The Chartered Association of Business Schools in October, I believe, is making an enormous visit with well in the almost 100 business schools going to India to explore relationships. When I was in Mumbai, I went to the Bombay Institute of Technology. In Pune, I saw your fantastic vocational system there. So there's a lot that can be happening. And when we go back to frugality, the vocational college was fascinating. I went and they had developed a science program for teachers, and they were putting 5,000 Indian teachers in schools through the program to learn how to do science experiments that were impressive using the cheapest materials. How to demonstrate gravity using, a string and a rock, how to cut paper in ways that showed mathematical systems. It was really amazing frugality stuff. And of course, the great thing is with connectivity and technology and AI, we're seeing those barriers to cross-border educational exchange lowering enormously. And here we have the advantage of sharing, to a large degree, English. And I think that's a big help as well.
That is, and that is one of the key aspects of why we have seen the back office the business around back office grow quite a bit over the last 2-3 decades in India. We can't talk about data without also mentioning about standards, Michael, right? So there are standards and certifications. So what standards, Michael, do you think companies should adopt to first win cross-border trust in the trade and the business relationships that are being built in the UK and India?
Well, India has for years, been known to some degree as a bit of a Raj state with a lot of regulation, a lot of special requirements. And I would encourage India to look very hard at the ISO, the International Standards Organization system.
Yeah.
Because what standards companies comply with? Well, there are many. It depends on what area you're in. But largely the ISO system encompasses most of the operational standards. And then in Geneva and Bonn, you'll find something called ISEAL, the International Social and Ethical Alliance. That covers, to a large degree, other standards to do with sustainability and ethics. So those are the kind of two broad bodies of international standards. And I would point out that when China acceded to the WTO a quarter of a century ago, the one great thing the Chinese did, which is often unremarked, is they slavishly followed the Western model of standards. They created an accreditation body for the nation. That accreditation body had certification bodies which competed, and that allowed China to enter immediately into the global food network and supply food. It allowed China to enter into the steel and manufacturing networks. They just religiously followed international standards. And where that meant there was a conflict with national standards, for the most part, the national standards faded away. And I would commend that approach to India, because that will ensure trade, not just with the UK, but with the world. And ISO exists for a very, very good reason, and that's it. Take, for example, the case of AI.
Yes.
There is now there's not a new, it's actually quite an old standard in the sense the project began about a quarter of a century ago, and that was to create something called ISO 42001. And that standard is for the responsible management of AI, and it's a certificate that would allow Indian companies to go anywhere, including Britain, and say, we are very responsible in our use of AI, and we can demonstrate that, and somebody has come in and audited us against that standard.
It's always interesting to hear from you, Michael, your nuggets of wisdom on all of these, right? So thank you very much. With regards to Maharashtra, looking into expanding into the UK, right? The businesses and the trade that are existing in Maharashtra. What sectors you think are most London ready right now, and why do you think that? Because as you mentioned, obviously the infrastructure, Maharashtra, while it's growing and expanding quite rapidly, it's still lagging the most developed counterparts, right? So would you have thoughts on that?
Well, I think there are two broad areas. It goes back to your earlier question. So finance, again, the world needs a gate onto India. It needs a window onto India.
Yeah.
And Maharashtra and Mumbai provide that. I'm conscious that there's also, of course, Gift City in Gujarat and a few others. But,
yes.
But in truth, Maharashtra has got an enormous opportunity to deliver on finance. People are hungry. And not to look at the UK as the investor, but as the switching box for the investor. So here in the United Kingdom, with less than 1% of the world's population, we manage 13% of global assets under management.
Yep.
And global assets under management includes domestically managed. So my argument would be we're probably about a quarter of the world's internationally movable assets are invested through London. And that's what people in Mumbai should be saying. I go to London to sell to London, but to sell to London to say, could you redirect Eastern money that's interested in agri-tech? Could you please, redirect Chinese money, that's very interested in moving into healthcare? And I think that's one huge area of opportunity for Mumbai and London to work together. And that's the right way to look at London, not just as another city, but as the world's capital city. The second area I do think, and it builds on traditional strengths of India in outsourcing and data management and all, is to ride the AI wave.
Yeah.
Ride it. It's trendy. I have my own views on when it will burn out, and when the trough of disillusionment
Will it though?
hit.
Okay.
Who knows? Who
That's
knows?
a separate podcast.
It's a separate discussion. But it is clear that it's popular, and that Maharashtra comes with a great reputation in that regard. And of course, that allows you, because AI is a bit like IT. It's in everything. I once made an argument that if you look over the last half century and a bit, in my lifetime, effectively, half of the innovation has been somebody putting a computer on something.
Yeah.
Put a computer on a car carburetor, put a computer on a thermometer, it's just put a computer on something. So 50% of innovation has been computing.
Yes.
And AI is going to follow that same trajectory and that same path. And, I'm pleased to see that Maharashtra has also grasped that. And that in turn has implications, as we spoke earlier, for building up perhaps data management capabilities.
Interesting. And one comment I'm going to take from you and from our conversation just now is looking at UK as a switching box for investor rather than investor itself. Yes, it is going to be an investment destination, but also a switching box to divert the investment wherever they are needed. Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Talking about investment, we come to capital. And London has been, and it still is, the back office finance capital, where a large portion of the money flows into and goes to other places, as you were mentioning quite eloquently in the expression of switching box. So which capital tools from London work best today for Maharashtra projects? Things like export credit, private credit, green finance, knowing that there's a lot of sustainability focus as well, coming down from PM Modi himself to all the state governments, federal and state.
Well, the financial world here in London is a very complex one. Firstly, we have about 25,000 businesses in the City of London, and arguably some 10,000 work in financial services and related professional services, something of that order. That's hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
And most of them are small businesses. So I always point out that London is about international wholesale finance. So there's retail finance, which we are not delivering retail financial services products to India or any other country. We don't even deliver them in Britain. Well over half of our banking sector is not located in the City of London. And so we're very much a wholesale market. So we have just under 300 banks in the City of London, but there are only 4 large British banks, and only one of them is located in the City of London. So it's that's the sort of work that we do, that behind the scenes wholesale markets operations.
Yeah.
And the reason I go on about the size of the companies is, of our 25,000 businesses, only 250 are not small and medium-sized enterprises. So very large areas of finance, take protection and indemnity mutuals. Roughly 12 firms with about 100 people each in London control 95% of that global market. And many of your listeners will have no idea what P&I is, and it doesn't matter. There's lots of very, very big areas of finance that are controlled in London by small firms. And so navigating that is I think, very important for Indian firms to get in and understand what they need, and for people like me and you to help them find what they need to get the job done. Small example, you're building a large hydroelectric project in South Asia. Real example, by the way. You want to insure the turbines for 40 years. Where do you go for that? And you do want that insurance, because it's saying this turbine will last for 40 years in this dam, and if it fails, I will compensate you. I can find you that insurance here in London, but the firm that provides it only has about 35 or 40 people. So you're in this kind of, how do I navigate that type of complexity? When it comes to the capital tools you were talking about, there's a lot of emphasis on liquid equities, listed equities. I'm very keen on it, and the London Stock Exchange fulfills that role, and there are a couple of other smaller exchanges here in London. ACI comes to mind, where you can do things. But don't forget trade finance, as you mentioned. Factoring, invoice discounting of various forms, insurance guarantees on exports. And I think sometimes people don't appreciate the value, honestly, of the debt markets. Private debt markets are sometimes a better option for people who are looking for long-term patient equity than trying to get a listing or something.
Yeah, and going back to the quarter by quarter, explaining to the investors every time. Yeah, okay, makes sense. And I think with regards to the financial services itself, you mentioned quite rightly about the number of banks that are headquartered here. I mean, it would be an interesting metric to identify which is the most populous city in the world with the highest number of banks per square mile. I think, yeah.
We know it's here.
Okay, nice one. So our purpose of forming GIBC, Global India Business Corridor, is to promote businesses across the two countries and make it a win-win-win situation for everyone involved. But what are the top 3 metrics that you would use to measure the success of such an objective? Would it be number of deals closed? Would it be jobs created, time to cash, or all of those and more?
I'm always loath, given a degree in statistics, to pick any single metric. It's almost dangerous.
I would have guessed that.
I've long been known to rail on about the dangers of relying on GDP as your only metric.
Yeah.
Even the chap who created GDP said, "Do not use this as your only metric." So all the things you mentioned are very, very important, but it does start with people. And so I would love to see a lot more measurement of people up front, the communities, the number of trips people are making, the number of communications they have with each other. Those are, if you're communicating and networking with people, the deals will flow through. But if you're not seeing them each other, then they never will. It's a bit of a funny thing in computing. If you think about it, we began automating business processes really in the 50s. What did we start with? Well, we started with payroll. And we started with the balance sheet. We started actually with everything at the back.
Yes.
Whereas business, to me, begins with you and me swapping business cards. And it wasn't really until the 90s we heard of customer relationship management systems and Salesforce and people coming in and saying, it starts with the business card and it should flow that way. So I would like to see a lot more metrics of how we're doing in terms of networking and connectivity. At CN, my firm, we run the Global Financial Centers Index and the Smart Centers Index. And we actually do have literally connectivity network maps of people's relationships around the world on our indices, which is a smaller measure. But we can tell you how many people in London look to Mumbai and vice versa. Do more people in Mumbai look to London or to New York or to Beijing? And we find that really, really helpful. We're doing a piece of analysis at the moment correlating that type of connectivity and the deal flow connectivity with airline routes.
Okay.
So to me, I would be focused on that. So your concept that your GIBC, the Global India Business Corridor, I would be looking at those corridors of connectivity.
Interesting. And if you layer on top of that the machine learning algorithms that can use the data, the kind of insights that you can get, it's
download from LinkedIn and see, numbers and use as your metric. Have we actually increased the Maharashtra, London networking over the last year? That kind of thing. Yes.
Very interesting, Michael. Thank you. So with your experience and, you traveled quite a few times to India, right? And what's the biggest misconception UK firms have about Maharashtra and the fix?
The fix for it, yeah. I actually think one of the biggest misconceptions, and I must say I've shared it myself from time to time, is that doing business in India is going to be too chaotic and difficult.
Okay.
And like all misconceptions, it didn't start from nothing. There's definitely some truth in it.
Yeah.
However, what I would say is the real misconception is to miss the fact that Indians make that work anyway. So it is working. It just may not be working in quite the orderly fashion you would like to claim. So I think that's probably the first thing. I think the second thing, the fix for it, is sadly just probably more examples that are honest about the problems that have arisen and how they can be overcome. Sometimes the government presentations are too lackadaisical. I can give you an example of, I'm very interested in corridor work where people start off with deal flow. And one of the tools I'm sure you're working on is showing investors, here are the state of all the deals. There are a number of areas like that. But I remember one which we were examining, and I won't say who, but one of the Indian states wanted the people to use a piece of advanced road covering to help handle the climate, but refused to take responsibility if it didn't work. Well, do you want to build a 25-year-old road using brand new technology that you've not used, and it's a requirement by the government that you take all that risk? And this just went round in circles, when actually what I think should have been done was people saying, it's just non-negotiable here. You can sell it as much as you like. You, the Indian government, will have to take responsibility for that road service, and then we can do all the rest of it. And it's just more of those sorts of examples, how they were worked through, how the end result came. And funnily enough, the end result was a combination of both insurance provided by the West on technology, but combined with the Indian government backstopping that guarantee. So, ways through this, but from the outside, it looked like an insurmountable problem. And I'm sure for a year or two, dinner tables around the country were going, don't do roads in India, which is the wrong message.
I see. And thank you very much for being candid on that. I think part of the solution is to first understand and accept the problem, that there is a problem. And in our conversation with the IT minister just a couple of days back, we heard him talk about it and talk about the various policies that are being put in place and the processes that are being put in place to A, circumvent this problem, and B, avoid the problem from existing in the first place, right? So things are changing slowly but surely in India. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I'd agree with that. I mean, these are people problems. This isn't knocking down a mountain that God built. This is just a people problem. And if people share the vision and really want to work together to achieve the goal, then they can fix it. And I think sharing more of those types of things will help us both. For sure, Michael. So I am towards the end of my questions, Michael, but I wouldn't let you go without getting into a quick fire round of very brief questions with very brief answers. You may have picked the wrong guy.
Let's say.
Quick answers.
Or brief answers. Right. Okay. So I'll start. One UK practice India should copy.
One UK practice India should copy. I guess probably the biggest bit on business practice is punctuality.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Take that. One India innovation the UK should adopt.
Definitely. Several Indian innovations the UK should adopt. I think the biggest thing is simplicity. Indians are very good at simple answers. We like to overcomplicate them. A good example being the science teacher stuff I spoke about earlier.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. Okay. Most overhyped tech.
Well, aside from AI and AI, probably blockchain as well. No, it's not that I'm anti these things. It's just that they don't of themselves solve the problems. Certainly not blockchain. It's a timestamping mechanism. It's a useful mechanism, but it is not the be-all and end-all of the world. AI is a bit vaguer, and I used to distinguish machine learning from AI, and that's getting harder and harder. And now suddenly AI has come to mean almost magic IT pixie dust, and then are you using AI? Yes, and I'm also using AI. It was almost impossible not to use it at the moment. So it's becoming meaningless in that way. But I think we will evolve a better vocabulary there.
Hype of today is probably reality of tomorrow. So we'll see how that pans out. Most underrated opportunity, Michael.
Sorry, most?
Underrated opportunity.
Most underrated opportunity. I think the most underrated opportunity between the two nations is exactly that about trade. And I think part of the reason that is underrated is people tend to hear trade and think, ah, yes, I love trade. I'm going to sell to him, or I'm going to sell to her. It's just as important to buy.
It is, yes. Thank you. That was quite brief. Thank you very much, Michael. It's been fascinating hearing your insights and your answers to all the questions. And wish you best of luck and enjoy.
Thank you, Vikram, and GIBC for encouraging these conversations, which hopefully will lead to those metrics going up on connectivity.
We hope so, and fingers crossed. Thank you all.